So my name is Tufik Simo, and I'm from Afrin, a small Kurdish city on the northwestern side of Aleppo in Syria.
In a general term, Kurds are the biggest stateless population. Their main territory is today's Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. So those countries occupied the country Kurdistan.
Everywhere the Kurds live in the world, they are a minority, and often a persecuted minority. They are one of the largest ethnic groups in the world who don't have their own homeland.
Sure. So as you know, Syria has been in civil war, but it didn't touch Aleppo city until the 2012. And at that time I was a senior in college. Just 3 weeks before my finals to graduate with bachelor's, the Free Army got in Aleppo city borders and then had clashes with the government army. So they shut down almost every public institution like my university. And I couldn't graduate at that time, so I had to leave the country in a week. I went to Saudi Arabia where my parents resided at that time. And I spent a month too hoping that the university will reopen, but that never happened. So after 6 months in Saudi Arabia, I decided to go to the US because I always wanted to come here for my master's. But since I didn't graduate technically, I had to redo my bachelor's here. And I started as a freshman in Cleveland State University. But then after one semester, I knew about Illinois Institute of Technology and a scholarship program that they cooperated with a Syrian NGO called Jisur Bridges that basically give you a scholarship plus transfer your credits from Syria, which was very valuable to me because I could save time and money. This is القبائل الكردية في الإمبراطورية العثمانية, Kurdish tribes in Ottoman Empire, and this is انتفاضة الأكراد 1880, which is the Kurdish Revolution in 1880, and البارزاني والحركة التحررية الكردية, so the Barzani and the Kurdish libertarian movement. Yeah, so the Free Army, which is the opposition army in Syria, and then the government army, one run by the government, Bashar al-Assad. At that time, those were the two major parties in the whole civil war, and they had a lot of fights going on in different cities, except for Aleppo. It was more on the outskirts of Aleppo, but then it emerged inside, and this is where the whole city of Aleppo became dysfunctional, and I left. Like, my cousin was in jail for 2 months. My friend, he died in fighting for the Free Army. I had another friend died fighting for the government army. 2 friends died in the sea because they were trying to immigrate on those floating boats to Turkey, but they never made it.
With the case of Kurds, not only Kurds, I mean in Africa, in Asia, you see these minorities, people are very cruelly being punished, being killed, being eradicated. These are crimes against humanity, and also it is a drama of humanity. I mean, we call ourselves humanity, but we cannot handle these cases. If we were really, as a human being, if we were really humane, these things wouldn't have happened.
The difficulties being assimilated, I think it really differentiates from city to another. For example, in Cleveland, Ohio, it was more difficult, but also less difficult because the people did not have much of international exposure. They didn't have much diverse exposure on people. Even Americans, like they didn't hang, like the people I met at school, they didn't hang out much before with Latinos or blacks, so they were mostly Caucasians. But me being like foreigner, that was like a new thing to them. So that was like one difficulty, that they didn't have the experience. But it was really cool because they had this cozy environment. They kind of had like a family together. However, moving to bigger city like Chicago, this thing disappears, where it's like a melting pot, kind of. However, still segregated. So I didn't have problems being international here at all. Like, a lot of people here are international. The language barrier, the culture, how do you communicate to the people of this country? How are we different from each other? There's a lot of difficulties I faced, but I was lucky to meet amazing people who helped me through the process, who have been here before me, or they were official mentors appointed to me by school and other organizations. So that was very, very helpful. You don't know this, but everything, if the Kurdish community in Syria, they want to, for example, institutionalize anything, like a Kurdish school, Kurdish language school, all of that is prohibited. You can't. Which, for example, if you're doing it under the table, you're gathering with other Kurds to learn the language or spread Kurdish culture, like books, and discuss it. That can be very high risk for you, and it will definitely lead to imprisoning you. Luckily, I haven't been in any.
What are some ways that you guys stay together, and just so you don't lose your sense of culture?
Yeah, so one of the ways is having a Kurdish center, right? To just have a either physical or psychological center for us there, where we hold events regularly, like Nowruz, where we have it once every year, or any other events targeted to different age groups, to gather the people or talk about previous events that happened in the Kurdish history, so, stuff like that. But I think eventually it's more of your friendship circles within the Kurdish community. So I think the Kurdish people connected through which country are they coming from. Like, if you're Kurdish Syrian, you're more connected to the Kurdish Syrian community on more regular basis, and then overall the Kurdish Center help you to connect with the other parts a few times a year through big events. We do have the UN, for example, UNICEF, even Human Rights Watch maybe, but how free are they there? That's the question. They can never be that free.